everyone, and welcome to Frontier Open Bell. It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. We made it to the end of yet another week. It's the 14th of July. And this is how the show progresses this morning. The Nigerian stock market continued its gravity back to earth, 2.03% on Thursday. The big names in the banking space fell sharply, including MTN and a few industrial goods. Insurance sector also in the red, as well as oil and gas. So the market is heading for a very gentle weekly gain, if that's not eroded at the end of today's trading. Keep your eyes on that. The BRVM in Cote d'Ivoire crossed to the 203 reading on the composite by just 8 basis points. The Egyptian market finished the week at 1.16%. That's very big. A jump for the EGX 30 in Cairo. The markets there will, of course, resume on Sunday. The Nairobi stock market down by 24, roughly 0.25%. And the GSE followed the rest of the emerging markets to the upside Thursday, 1.01%. The resources, industrials, and financial indices were in the gray. It was also positive for the rand, trading about 16.9 against the dollar, roughly up roughly 1% on the US dollar on Thursday. All that ahead of the SARB's interest rate decision on the 28th of July. That's later next week. Keep that in mind. It's going to be critical. Analysts are forecasting that the Reserve Bank will likely hold rates in Africa's most advanced economy by Lesija Kerigango and the rest of his 5-member Monetary Policy Committee team on the back of the recent softening of South Africa's inflation. That will be some good news. But let's keep fingers crossed until July the 20th. Let's move on to see the East Africa's big stories. The Iranian president who touched down first in Nairobi has gone to Uganda, met with President Yoweri Museveni in Entebbe, and now is concluding his three-country African nations visitation in Zimbabwe. It's been a lot of economic and bilateral trade discussions by Iranian president, who also railed heavily against the United States and the Western world, asking Uganda to step back on his homosexuality bill. Of course, you expect that to be on this agenda, by the way. And Kenya's reporting current account deficit deep into about 84 billion shillings in the period under review, while July bond auction by the Treasury fetched about 38 billion shillings. And Uganda is looking to import 5% tax on Netflix, Twitter, Facebook, and others looking to raise revenue for the government. In the meantime, MTN Uganda and Postbanks are in bed to float a new digital wallet by the name Wendy. That's already been up and running. You can look it up just to ease instant transfer payment system transactions and all of that within the East African country, that's Uganda. MTN Uganda is listed on the Uganda Stock Exchange, by the way. Let's check in with West Africa, with Nigeria yesterday for the first time in recent history, declaring a national emergency on food insecurity. It's the first of such emergency declaration under the new administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who's just less than 2 months in office. And that's the consequences, of course, of the removal in one fell swoop, multi-trillion food subsidy, as well as the country looking to converge its exchange rates. The Naira dollar has moved up as high as 800 in recent weeks, and that's putting extensive pressure on people's income. The consumers' wallets has been strongly squeezed in recent weeks. And now the government is moving into cushion that by paying 12 households 8,000 naira for the next 6 months as palliatives. And the government also revealed a further action plan that is looking to help the country produce more food, grow more food, produce more food and food-related products, deal with logistics issues, transportation, deal with storage, warehousing, and everything else in between, including introduction of new commodity boards. It was quite an extensive statement released late Thursday. How much that will go in the short to medium term is anyone's guess. But it's still good news as a curtain raiser. This is the first time Nigeria is declaring a national emergency on food for the country's 200 million plus population, most of whom are youths, young ones, as well as women. And the U.S. Export-Import Bank has appointed Jude Kenny as a new chairman for a Sub-Saharan Africa Advisory Committee, and we say congratulations. Ghana is looking to sell assets of 17 defunct government companies in order to save costs and raise some money and just dispose of them to the hands of the private sector. And Fitch has affirmed the EFDB's AAA rating as well as a stable outlook for the leading development finance institution on the African continent, while Bloomfield has upgraded the Bank of Africa's of Cote d'Ivoire listed on the BRVM long-term rating by one notch higher. That's some good news as well for the BOA, Bank of Africa, Cote d'Ivoire. Let's roll it down, take up the Southern Africa's top stories this Friday morning. Of course, we talked about the SARB seeing holding interest rate at about 8.25%. That's South Africa's repo rate on July the 20th. Standard Bank, however, says he's keeping one eye open on crypto currencies, but it's not jumping into the fray anytime soon. In the meantime, a former minister of Mozambique has been extradited to the United States and is facing charges in that Credit Suisse collapsed banks, $2 billion issue relating to debt with Mozambique, but the former minister of Mozambique says he's not guilty. And Botswana President Masisi has asked the President Biden's administration to renew the African Growth and Opportunities Act AGOA by the time it expires in 2025. But of course, there's a major election in US in 2024. So something got to be done between now and the next general elections in the US to see if AGOA could move a bit beyond the deadline of 2025. Our Fitch ratings have reached the long-term IDR of triple B plus of the Africa Trade Capacity Limited. That's a specialized insurance company on the African continent supporting sovereigns and others as far as risk mitigation is concerned when it comes to trade. The outlook is also stable, and that's some good news as well. Let's finish it up in North Africa, just to give you a sense of what is making headlines north of the continent, with Tunisia is reporting the trade deficit down by $3.088 billion in the first half of the year. In the meantime, the microfinance banking sector in Egypt is reported a jump in operations up by 18.4% in the first quarter, January to March, while the finance minister of Egypt has ratified cancellation of preferential tax for state-owned enterprises. And the French Development Agency has approved 80 million euros in loan for Morocco's green transition plan. And finally, news coming through from Libya says there are protests against the attack on a minister of the country. So some oil facilities have been shut down. That could affect as much as 250,000 barrels of oil coming out of Libya. That's according to ENZ research report out late Thursday. Keep that in mind. Of course, there's also a force majeure declared by Shell Petroleum in Nigeria. Forecados facility, by the way. Keep those in mind. Have a great weekend, everyone. I'll see you at the other side of the weekend, bright and early on Monday. Bye for now.